Welcome back to another episode of Skid's Garage, and today we're going to dig into this orange panel van and see if we can complete it a little bit more. Done some shopping and we're going to see if we can get this car a little bit more complete. So let's get into it. Now that we've got this engine running and the van driving, I have decided to put a little bit more effort into it and see if I can get it a little bit more complete. So, I've done some shopping. So, things like radiator cap, fan belt, air filter, which I had laying around, a fuel cap, fuel filter, some terminals for the alternator, JB weld, because I'm going to attempt to fix up that broken radiator, some screws, tech screws, because that sheet back here, that I'm just going to tech screw in to cover up the rusted out floor. Going to give that a whirl, as dodgy as it might be. I'm going to paint the floor, and before I paint it, I've bought this vacuum cleaner and I'm going to give inside a vacuum. Let's see what we find. So let's get stuck into all that and see how we go. So the first thing I'm going to tackle is the radiator. So if you have a look down here, that piece has broken off from the radiator. It's a bit hard to see, it's a bit dark. You'll see it a bit better when I pull the radiator out, but I'm going to try my luck in JB welding it. May or may not work, but we're going to try anyway. So it's pretty simple to get out because it's not actually mounted in, so I'll just take the top and bottom radiator hose off, slip the radiator out, and I'll show you the damage and what I've got planned to fix it. So you can see that piece is still stuck in the radiator hose. That's the piece I want to try to JB weld back onto the radiator. Who knows if it's actually going to work or not, but I'm going to try anyway. And it's that simple to remove. It's because I haven't actually got it secured to the body. So I'll chuck the radiator on the ground and I'll show you the damage and what I've got planned to fix it. So this is what we're working with. This is a piece that's broken off from the radiator, and that's the damage to the radiator. So the plan is, so it sits on something like that, to JB weld it on. So what I'm thinking, because there's this little lip here that this actually slips into, I'm thinking a bit of JB weld around the edge, around this as well, around the edge of that, and then I'm just going to stick it down. Then I'm thinking of just doing a nice big fat bead just around the outside, just to make sure it's nice and sealed. Fingers crossed it will hold up to the task. I've seen people play around with this JB weld before and chuck it in diffs, and they've had a locked diff which did alright. Obviously didn't hold up, but probably went through a lot more strain than what this radiator will, and until it gave up. So I'm feeling pretty confident if I do this right, this should work. So let's get stuck into mixing up some JB Weld and giving this a whirl. So I've never used this JB Weld stuff before. I've used the JB Weld products before, just not this particular stuff. I've welded up, well not welded, but I've fixed an exhaust leak on my white 4-door Escort using a JB Weld product, and that seems to be holding up quite well. So fingers crossed this works just as well. Anyway, so I've got two products, got to mix them 50-50, and then yeah, so I'm using a bit of cardboard, my little mixer, and then hopefully I can just paste it through here. Fingers crossed it works. I have no idea how well this is going to work, or if it's going to work. Oops, let's try straighten this up a bit. Don't know what the hell hit this. But this radiator's definitely seen better days. Knowing my luck, I'll probably put all this time and effort into doing this to find out that the radiator leaks. But unfortunately that just comes with it. So I don't know if I actually made that any better or worse. Pretty worse, to be honest. I know. Fits in there a bit tighter now. There we go. Look at that. That's a little bit better. Just trying to get this sealed as like a bit of a mating surface between the two parts, just to help get the best result. So fingers crossed, that is all we need. Let's give this a whirl. I have no idea how much I need, so I'm thinking I might start off relatively small. Oh shit. Oh no. Sticks. Oh god, this is just not wanting to stop. Okay, now the red. I'm assuming it's red. It's in a red. No, it's white. So let's mix those two together. See what we're working with. Cool. So trying to mix it up to a nice consistent grey colour from the looks of it. I'm going to have to mix some more up. This isn't going to be enough, I reckon. Let's give this a whirl. So I want to make a nice fat bit in the inside the radiator. I want it thick enough that, well, I'm hoping I'll get it thick enough that when I put this piece back in, it'll ooze out. Then I know I've got a nice, decent seal. Because when this radiator's under pressure, it's not going to take much to leak. That's why I'm not sure how well this is actually going to work. It's trial and error. Use my finger, I reckon. So it's got a cure time of something like 4 hours, and then a full set time of 12 hours. So I've got 4 hours to play with this. before it cures and unworkable. So it's friendly enough to work with. I don't have like 5 minutes to set it in place, and hope it works. Okay, so this might be enough actually to do what we want. I'm thinking I'm definitely going to need a big fat bead of this stuff around the outside. What can I clean my hands with? Okay, so slips in like so. And then it's oozed out, meaning I've got a nice seal. I'm relatively confident that's a good seal now. Okay, so that's not very thick, so I'm going to mix some more up and chuck a nice big fat amount around the outside, hopefully to seal it in a little bit more. But I'll get you off the tripod and show you what I've done so far. So this is what I've done so far. If it focuses, you can see how as I pushed it into the radiator, that piece, little bits oozed out. I didn't go too thick. The back end needs a little bit more work, but that's where I'll mix more up and make a nice big thick bead of it around the outside, hopefully sealing it up. Hopefully my next visit I'll have a working radiator. Chuck you back on the tripod, I'll mix some more up and we'll try to put a nice big thick amount on the outside. So this is it. You can see how I've put it on nice and thick around the whole lot, just to make sure I don't put it on too thin and that it leaks. So I think that's about all I can do to that at the moment. That worked a bit better than I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but that seemed to go relatively smooth. Not saying it's going to work, but we'll find out probably on my next visit. So that's the radiator done. Let's get stuck into probably doing the fan belt and connecting up the alternator. So I was having a look at getting this belt and stuff on, and then I got sidetracked and found out I had no sensor, no temp sensor. So rummaged around all my spare bits and pieces and I found this. So that's just an old sensor. Most of my parts that I've got as spares are old parts that I've taken off and replaced because they're no good, broken, faulty, whatever. But this will do the trick of blocking up the hole. However, I went to test fit and it doesn't want to slide in. Unsure why. Feels like it's kind of fouling out on something inside. So I'm going to crack this cover off and see what's under there. And I thought I'd take you on the journey with me. So let me get you onto a tripod. We'll crack this off and we'll see what's lurking underneath. that doesn't look great. Let me show you what's inside. So just cracking this thermostat housing off, and that's what the thermostat housing looks like. And it's hard to see in there, but there is just 10 tons worth of just crap in there. See if I can grab some. It is just chunks of corrosion. So getting this, I'm gonna have to get a new gasket. No biggie, but there is just 10 tons worth of corrosion here, and I reckon what might be fouling out the sensor, not sure if you can see it there, let's have a look. No, not really, is corrosion. I reckon it's just corroded up the hole. Oh, there it is, there's the hole there. Where is it? You can see some light there. Let's see if I can yep, force it in, it'll go in. So what I might do is give that a clean up, and it should thread in. In regards to this mess in here, I'm going to put my new vacuum cleaner to the test and vacuum that all out. That's not overly promising. Like literally there are chunks of metal, so it's not overly promising. This block might be fairly well cooked. See, look at all that in here. Like, oh shit, hang on. All that in there. There we go. You get a bit of a better idea. Wouldn't be surprised if this block is fairly well cactus. In regards to holding any water, it'll probably, if it does hold water, it'll probably overheat. But we're going to try anyway, aren't we? Because that's what I'm about. Giving things a try and seeing what the result is. It's the can-do attitude. So, also another thing to show the corrosion of the cooling system. This is the neck that comes off the water pump, and it's missing all this through here. It's completely corroded off, so I need a new water pump. So when I get around to taking that water pump off, I am dreading on what I'm going to find behind there, because that water pump, if this is anything to go off in regards to the thermostat housing, come to think of it, there's no actual thermostat either. But anyway, if this is anything to go off, that pump down here is going to be absolutely cooked. Anyway, back to it. Let's clean this thread out on the side, get the sensor in, put the cap back on, and power back onto what I was doing. I get easily sidetracked. So let's get into it. Looks like this could be old silicon. So it looks like someone's tried siliconing at the thermostat in last time, or the thermostat housing. That's really badly corroded. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if this was taken off the road, not because it wasn't running as such, but because it was probably overheating. I don't know why, but there is so much rust through this car. Through the engine, through the body, everywhere. You look anywhere on this car and there's bloody well rust on it. It's a very rusty car. Why, I don't know. It's nearly like it was used to dock boats in the ocean or something. You never know. I've got no idea what the history of this car is. But we'll see if we get a bit of life into it. Okay, so let's give this a vacuum cleaner a go. First time I'm using it. You should see all, turn that off. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get it on camera, but oh my god, you should see all that corrosion that's actually inside the head here. It is just, it's literally about that thick of just crap. What I could do when I'm ready to put water and stuff into it is maybe just flush it out with some water. Yeah, there is 10 tons worth of just rust in there. That's ridiculous. Got it. So, literally, what this is fouling out on is literally rust. Oh, what the? I have no idea where that come from. So let's try our luck winding this in. I'll have to be gentle because the last thing I want to do is snap it off in there. Yep, she's winding in. Let me get a spanner. Socket's not going to quite do the trick, so let's use a spanner. Here we go. It's winding in relatively easily. So the thread's obviously not bad. It's going in quite well. See if I can get it in so the head fouls out on the it until I run out of thread completely. Okay, that sensor has fouled out onto the head, so that's all the way in. Okay, so what I might do, just give this a good coating of WD-40. Whether I'm actually achieving anything or not, I don't know. Let's do the fuel pump as well. Not fuel pump, water pump. Nah, super grindy. No movement in it though, so the bearing's alright. Anyway, I'm not going to waste too much of this stuff on it. But that'll probably do absolutely nothing other than help me sleep at night knowing that I've done it. Okay, so we'll chuck this back on, keeping in mind it's got no seal, no gasket, so that's a job for another day. And a thermostat, it's got no thermostat, so if I was a betting person, I would say this has overheating problems, this engine. It's probably because it's full of absolute crap inside. But we'll see if we can do anything with it. See if we can save this engine and make it a good runner within reason, considering the circumstances we're working with. Anyway, that's that done. I'm going to migrate back onto what I was doing, and that was putting this belt on. That way I've got an alternator, and then I'm going to wire up, I bought some connectors to wire up the alternator. There should be 3 wires here. Let me get them. Okay, they look to be the same colour because I've sussed out my red Panelvan to try to work out what these wires were for. And here it is. This is another one. I've got it all tucked away, so where am I? There it is. Not sure if you can see that, but that's a red wire that goes, well, it's connected to the solenoid, which is connected to the battery. So it's essentially the same as connecting it directly to the positive of the battery. That connects onto the back of the alternator. That's what should charge. The charge from the alternator should be sent through this back into the battery. So that's that wire. Then I'm working with I guess an aqua colour wire and a red and white wire. I reckon, hopefully I got this right, but I reckon the aqua one is for the alternator, which is nothing more than a signal to my dash to say whether it's charging or not, which is pretty irrelevant because I don't think anything on the dash works. This one here I reckon is my temp sensor, which goes onto this sensor I just put in. Again, fairly irrelevant at this point because I don't think anything on the dash works. Well, in fact the dash is pulled out because I ruined that speedo cable that you would see in a previous video of on this. Anyway, that should be that. So let's get this built on and let's wire up the alternator. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove this alternator. That way I know exactly what I'm working with behind, because if you have a look behind, it's hard to see, but it's dark back there, and the angles I don't know really what I'm working with, so I don't know what wires go in where. So I'm going to pull it out, that way I can actually have a better look at it. So I'll be back with you when it's out. So this is the alternator that we're working with. Now I took it off so I could get a better idea of what I'm working with. Don't mind it looking wet. I dosed it up with some WD-40 because that's what I like to do, is smother everything with WD-40. Anyway, so you can see a positive there. I thought there might have been a what is it, like a slip-on connector for here, but there isn't. It's an actual ring, so you need to get a ring connector, which I just so happen to have pulled off it, and it just so happens, yes, it's dodgy, but dodgy is my middle name because I do everything dodgy. It's reusable, I reckon, so I'm going to try reusing it. So that red wire I was talking about, we'll go on to that. That aqua wire will go on to here, and that is the alternator connected. Doesn't look like anything here gets used. That's all capped off. So I'm going to put it back on. Now I know what I'm working with, and I'm going to piece it all together. So I'm going to put those connections onto the wires. Fingers crossed this alternator works. So I put new connections on everything that didn't have connections. So That now goes on the back of the alternator and should be my positive cable. This one here, come on, it's caught on something here. That goes on the back of the alternator, and that's just my signal for my dash. There is also, amongst these wires, there's also this one that I spoke about earlier. That's for the temp sensor. There's also this one here. That goes onto my starter solenoid. There is this one here also that goes on my starter solenoid. And this one I've disconnected, that also goes on the solenoid. That's tees into, where is it? This one here that I was talking about before, that goes on the back of the alternator. And that connects onto the solenoid where the positive cable from the battery connects to. So it's essentially connected directly to the battery. I reckon that's pretty much all the wires there, all identified. So now, chuck the alternator back in, connect it all up, chuck the belt on, and yeah, we'll see if we can get this started and see if I get any charge to the battery. So fingers crossed. So since I'm in the mix of playing around down here, I've decided to swap the solenoid over. So that's the solenoid from the van. This is from my blue two-door. So instant difference, shake that one. I know this one works. And it doesn't rattle. Shake this one, and it's like there's something loose inside. So whether that's an indicator that it's faulty, but I'm sure we'll find out. So swap that back in, wire it all up, chuck that alternator in, belt on, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I've got everything all wired up. If you can see under there, I've got my positive, my signal for my dash, and I've wired up my temp sensor. Went to put the belt on, but every time so I'll tighten the belt up, like adjust the alternator, twist it to tighten up the belt, and then I tried to do a rotation, and then it loosened off again, and then I tightened it back up, and then it locked up and wouldn't work. I was trying to work out why. It's because of that. That crank pulley is absolutely done for. So I'm gonna have to replace that. Don't know how big a job that is. I've never done it, but we're gonna have to. See if I can get a, oh no, can't through here. So can't put the belt on, so that's pretty much that done. All the wires are connected up. I've got that other starter solenoid that I know works. I know the starter motor's a tad loose, so I'm going to tighten that up. I'm going to see if I crank this over using the ignition from inside the car. So let me tighten up the starter motor and let's try cranking her over. Cool, so everything's connected up. I know the battery's a bit dicky, but hopefully there's enough just to test that starter solenoid, just to see if it'll crank over. So let's try to do this one-handed. So hang on a second, I'm going to put you down and then I'm going to connect this up and I'll be right back with yous. Okay, so that's the ignition connected up. I've got no spark, so that's not a good start. Let's see. Oops. Nothing. So I reckon it's a fault somewhere along the lines. Don't know what's going on here. Again, no spark there. That should turn the car over. Getting no spark. So I'm not sure if my battery is completely dead to the point that it's not going to work at all. But I'll connect up the Falcon to the battery and we'll try again. Rightio, connected up to the Falcon now. Let's see if I get any more luck. Nothing. Completely dead. Why? I don't know. Let's keep investigating. Okay, so I've been messing about with this for quite some time now. And even with the starter solenoid from the blue sedan, blue two-door, still can't get it to turn over via the ignition. So there's an electrical gremlin somewhere. Now, what's weird is I had it all connected up. I accidentally left the ignition it connected up under the dash, and out of nowhere it started turning over. I actually had to disconnect the battery and everything to stop it from rolling over. I then reconnected the battery, went back to the ignition wires under the dash, and nothing. So it works. It just, there's obviously a gremlin in there somewhere. So I do have when connected up with the right wires under the dash, this ends up getting a positive, which should send a positive to the solenoid, but for whatever reason it's just not working. I've tried sending power to it directly from the battery, all sorts. I'm getting nothing with the solenoid. So maybe the solenoid's not at fault and there's an actual electrical gremlin somewhere. But anyway, that's wired up as it should be. Everything's all wired up. Everything's good. Just need a new crank pulley. Chuck a belt on. When that radiator's ready to refit it. Otherwise, obviously I'm going to have problems with the cooling system because you saw how dirty that is in there. Got an air filter on it. It's got no actual filter as such inside, but it'll stop gunk from or dust or pigeon shit falling down the carby or whatever. Should prevent some stuff from falling in. So I need a filter for that, but that'll do for the meantime. Otherwise, yeah, engine wise, it is cruising along slowly. Obviously need a new brake master cylinder. That one's seen better days. So now with this ignition, I can get it turning over if I arc out the two terminals at the back of that starter solenoid. I thought I'm getting a spark at the wires under the dash, but getting nothing. So getting a spark, but that's it. So I thought I'd try my luck and connect up the actual ignition. So the coil via the wires under the dash. I was getting 12 volts to the coil, which should mean I've got ignition, but it would not fire up. As soon as I hotwired that coil straight to the battery, it fired straight on up, first go. So there's something going on with probably the loom under the dash. I've got no idea what's going on, but that's something that's going to take quite some time to work out and get working properly. So I'm going to migrate off from the engine bay, because that's pretty much everything I can do there. So next visit, hopefully, radiator in. Hopefully we'll put some coolant into the engine, well, water, and see what happens. Need a filter for my air thing there, but I'm not overly concerned about that at the moment. Brake master cylinder, but not concerned about that at the moment. That's a task for later down the track. I want to next visit to get the fuel tank out, clean it out, make sure it's not all rusted. It's underneath obviously, so don't know if you'll be able to see, probably too dark. Yeah, it's dark under there, can't really see much. Anyway, get the fuel tank out, make sure it's nice and clean, connect up my fuel line because I still got my fuel line there, and hopefully get this running off its own fuel tank. That'll just get that bit more complete, so then hopefully it'll be cooling itself and running off its own tank. Then I can drive it as you would a normal car. And then all I need to do is tackle the ignition so I can actually start it up via the ignition in the car. And then brakes, I'm sure they're completely shot. But these are all things I've got planned for it. But that'll all be on a later episode. So I'm going to end this video here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see yous all on the next episode of Skid's Garage.